Welcome to the Embody Me Podcast. I'm your host, Amber Fortier, a digital entrepreneur, embodiment coach, and manifestation expert. My mission is to help success-driven, ambitious women stand in their power, embody their inner CEO, and manifest the successful business of their dreams. This podcast provides you with thought-provoking conversation, manifestation techniques, and wellness tips to turn your spiritual practices into a lifestyle, discover your inner rich babe, and massively transform your business, brand presence, and bank account. Let's effortlessly manifest opportunities and embody the rich, the confident, and the wildly successful version of yourself. Press play to dive in. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today. I am here with the lovely Iva Perez, and we are going to be talking about how you can become a wealth attraction machine. Now, when I first met her and we were thinking about what to collaborate on, and she said this, I was like, yes, sign me up. How do I become a wealth attraction machine? And this is just going to be such a great topic. So whether you're listening in from the podcast, from YouTube, or straight from our website, thank you so much for being here. And I really encourage you to watch all the way till the end because she will be doing a live hypnotherapy for us all. So make sure to stay until the end. And hello, how about you introduce yourself? Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, Amber. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate the opportunity to be sharing with your audience a little bit of what I do, but also most importantly, how to become a wealth attraction machine, because I do believe it is not an empty promise. As you know, everything is energy, even money. And that's why it is possible with the right tools and the right techniques to really start attracting more wealth into our lives. Like nobody is out there saying, oh, no, thank you. I have enough wealth as it is. So I love to be able to help in that department and to give people a real possibility to understand that once they make very simple tweaks, it is possible to start receiving that abundance and wealth.
I freaking love it. So yes, I am just ready to dive straight in.
Perfect. So let's go ahead. And today's class, what we are going to cover is, first of all, I'm going to talk about the 5 things that you didn't know about your mind and how you can use them to your advantage. And then the second thing is that you're going to experience a rapid transformation hypnotherapy session. It's like a taster session, but it's a little bit of what I do with my clients, especially to help them really uncover those money blocks that they might have and any other limiting belief that is preventing them from receiving more money and abundance in their lives. So I'm just going to talk a little bit about who I am. And my name is Iva Perez, and I am a licensed RTT practitioner, and I am the founder of the Momergy movement. And I began the Momergy movement because I am borderline obsessed with helping moms and female entrepreneurs to correct their inner autocorrect. What does this mean? It means that we are going to tap into the subconscious mind and do the inner work, transforming limiting beliefs. Like that is my jam. I believe that when we are helping the female collective, we are helping the whole world because the backbone of families are moms. And we are literally raising the new generations that are coming on board and that are going to make powerful changes in the planet. So it is important that these moms feel supported every step of the way. And as you can see, I am also a mom to 2 little ones. I'm a recovering perfectionist, a matcha evangelist, and I firmly believe in having fun every step of the way. So a little bit about my story is that not too long ago, I was also in a place where I had this inner voice in my head that just wouldn't stop with just a very negative, toxic, limiting inner dialogue. And I didn't understand it early in my childhood, but later in my life that I had been raised by a narcissist mother. And so when you are under that type of dysfunctional relationship, you are not aware about the emotional trauma that you're under. like you don't really understand because you don't know any better. But it isn't until you start to have your own children that you realize that you're stepping into these old patterns that you adopted from childhood that are not only limiting you, but they're very toxic and they really make you feel like you are doing it all wrong, that you are a bad person, or simply that there is something absolutely wrong with you. So in that sense, I had tried a lot of techniques, a lot of other types of therapies, but they were not really getting to the root of how I could really release these limiting beliefs and imprint in myself a new way of thinking, a new inner dialogue. And that's when I discovered RTT, and it really changed my life because this technique is so powerful. It really goes straight to the root cause of what is causing you your issue in the first place. Consciously, we might think that the problem is something, but in reality, the problem is something else. With that said, when I discovered RTT and I implemented it in my life and I saw the big, powerful changes that I went through, I said, I need to help other moms discover the same. And that's how I became a licensed RTT practitioner.
I love this so much because, I have a lot of mom friends and I hear, they feel like they're such a bad mom, and especially saying, all the conditioning we've had from our childhood, the different experiences we've had from the people around us. It could be hard to find your own truth and to understand like what is the root cause of this. So I am so excited to hear more about, what RTT therapy actually is.
RTT stands for Rapid Transformational Therapy. And so I have been endorsed by UK's #1 therapist. Her name is Marisa Peer, and she is really the person behind this technique. She has been working as a therapist for over 30 years, and she has worked with everyone, the royal family, Hollywood celebrities, and pretty much she has accumulated a whole wealth and depth of knowledge about what is it that happens in your subconscious mind that creates these limiting beliefs and that really results in this type of patterns or negative loops, as you would call them, that keep holding people back. So what this does is that it is a pioneering type of therapy. It has won numerous awards and it continues to grow in global recognition, and it helps facilitate emotional empowerment. And I use it precisely for that, to help facilitate the emotional empowerment for women in all areas of their lives. Because I believe as a mom, I'm a busy mom, I'm scaling and growing my business. And so I don't think that lasting change should require years of talk therapy when you can actually create lasting and permanent results in as little as 21 days, and that you do 1 to 3 sessions with the right tools and techniques so that you can powerfully install these new beliefs. Because I saw it happen to me. I see it happening to the moms that I work with. And to that effect, mothers and mompreneurs are my niche, but it works on anyone. So this is the powerful thing, is that anyone that has any type of limiting belief issue that they want to work on can work with RTT therapy to get to the root cause.
Wow, I love that. And I'm so excited to hear more and to just dive into this. This is so amazing to hear about all these different types of therapies, because as you said, a lot of people think, if you go to traditional therapy, it's going to take you years and years to really kind of overcome whatever traumas you're going through. Where, as I said, with this, it can take you as little as 21 days. So that is amazing.
It is that fast. And that's why I'm so excited to be using it as a tool and to offer it as another alternative and tool that people can definitely consider in their lives. So just to get started, we are going to be talking about mindset today. Mindset is very important because, in a nutshell, it is how we speak to ourselves. This is not only important, it is vital. How we speak to ourselves is the way that we are, in a way, instructing our mind to operate. Our mind's job is to do what we ask it to do. But unfortunately, we haven't been taught how to properly do it. And another layer to that is that maybe in childhood, we just adopt mistaken beliefs about situations. We have a very unique interpretation of something that might have happened in the past, most likely in our childhood, because as children, we don't have critical thinking still developed. So we start to form beliefs about things in a way that might not be logical, but that doesn't matter because the subconscious mind is not the logical mind. It is the feeling mind. So it is all about how you decide to interpret a specific event or situation that happened. And sometimes we interpret things the wrong way. And so it starts off as a snowball effect because we interpret them the wrong way. They get stored in our mind as a mistaken belief about ourselves or about the world. In this case, we are talking about wealth and abundance. And if we have been installed certain beliefs about money, how to get it or how to acquire it, or whether we are deserving of having a lot of money, that is all getting stored as a blueprint. That is how we start talking to ourselves, and then that becomes our mindset. So that's why it is crucial to know that when we're dealing with the subconscious, we're dealing with the feeling mind. It only lives in the present tense. And if we don't know how to run our mind, our subconscious mind, it's going to run us. Why? Because 90% of our actions, behaviors, thoughts, and emotions stem from the subconscious mind, not the conscious mind. So it is quite daunting to see this percentage and thinking, oh no, but I'm awake all the time. I am conscious of what I am doing. Yes, but unfortunately, 90% of what you're doing has already been imprinted as a habit, as a way of behaving from the past. And that is why we need to understand that the most important words in the universe are the words that we tell ourselves. But we learn what words to tell ourselves through our experiences in childhood. The good thing is that it is not all set in stone. We can always change that. As I was sharing from my personal story, I grew up believing that I wasn't enough, that I wasn't lovable enough, that no matter what I did, it was never going to be good enough. And so it created this snowball effect of how I showed up in my life, how I did the things I did, how I made decisions with relationships, with career choices and all of that. But the good thing is that there is always a possibility to change. We're always able to change the narrative. So that is the main key idea that I want to share. And the second idea that I also want to talk about is that is the reason why in our pursuit of thinking, yes, I want more money, I want to be wealthy, I want to have more abundance in my life, we run into a lot of information that is out there, programs, hacks, gurus that tell us, join my program or do these things or buy my book. And I'm going to get you to, 6 figures in 6 weeks or in 1 day or 1,000 followers in 24 hours or whatever that is that you feel is going to get you closer to achieving your financial goals. But the problem is that all of that will most possibly fail if the problem is related to your belief about yourself and your belief about money. So consciously, you can buy the program, you can follow the instructions, you can hire the coach. All of that works to a certain extent, but it's going to be an uphill battle if behind the scenes you are undoing everything because your belief at the root issue is that you're not worthy, because then you're just going to step into procrastinating habits or you're going to self-sabotage. And that's why people go into these negative loops, not really understanding what is wrong. So that is the key idea number 2 that I wanted to share. We can have a lot of information and we can do a lot of learning, but learning is temporary. It is only as good as that data is valid. And we know that we are living always in an ever-changing world where the shelf life of information is half. Every other day, we see articles from a year ago that are no longer valid, or 6 months ago that are no longer valid. It doesn't hold anymore. Something else came along. Something else refuted that idea. Something else proved that this was not working anymore. The algorithm changed. How many times does the algorithm change? So learning is temporary, but transformation is permanent. And so through a rapid transformational experience is when we really go to the subconscious, we bypass the logical mind and we cut to the chase. And that's where we make the corrections that we need so that anything else that we do and adopt consciously, all the programs and all the gurus and all the coaches, then they can work because they're working on a better foundation.
I love that. And that's so wise because I feel like there's so many of us who have invested in programs, invested in coaches, and it's like, okay, their strategy is working for everyone else. Why is it not working for me? And as you said, if you don't touch on the root of the problem, it doesn't matter what else you do. I think there's a quote that says like, I think it says, if you can put glitter on shit, but it's still going to be shit. You know what I mean? Yes, so like you really have to get to the root cause and heal that first, because then you're going to be able to make all these lasting changes.
Yes, you said it in such an illustrative way. And it is true. It's like putting a Band-Aid on a hemorrhage, right? You are going to continue bleeding. And it is very crucial to examine this. If you find yourself realizing that you're going through these negative loops all the time and you don't know why you keep self-sabotaging or procrastinating or, being in your head and in your own way, most likely there's a limiting belief behind that is not allowing you to go by. And then I'll show you why is that, because we're going to jump straight into how we can get our beliefs fixed, right? How we can really shift them around if they are leaning towards a blueprint that is not helping us get to where we need to go. Then what matters is that we get our beliefs fixed so that we can move forward. And so a great thing that we're going to learn today is what are the 5 rules of your mind? Because what happens is that even if you find yourself that you are looking for therapy to help you, let's say that, you want to get to the root of why you are having troubles and problems with money. In traditional therapy, they will try to ask you and have a conversation with, for example, what is your first money memory? Right? When you think back to your childhood, what is the first time that the money really became part of your consciousness? And these are very telling memories, and I don't discredit them. But the whole thing is that is probably not the whole story. And maybe when it became part of your conscious, it's because in your subconscious, it had already been operating behind the scenes, but you didn't have the language to express it. You probably didn't have know-how on how to vocalize that. So that didn't happen until much later. But we are constantly getting inputs from our environments, from our parents, from how we interact with others since we're born. However, when we're born, we don't have the capacity to answer back. We don't have the capacity to really make a logical evaluation of what things are happening. And so because that blueprint is most likely embedded from a much earlier memory or situation that happened, we can only access it through our subconscious mind. So these are the 5 things that you can use to your advantage to start making those powerful shifts as of right now. So the first rule is that your mind cannot hold 2 conflicting beliefs at once. Okay. Your mind is laser focused and goal driven. It is its job to get you to where you want to go. But if you are holding 2 conflicting beliefs at the same time, it is going to go and spin around instead of going straight to where it needs to go. For example, you say, oh, I want to be successful. I want to build a successful business, or I really want to step it up in my career, and I want to retire early. And you want to do all these things, right? But at the same time, you have a deep-rooted fear of rejection or failure. So how is that supposed to work? Because if you are somebody that needs to strive for success, success implies that you're going to have to fail quite a few times before you get to where you want to go. But if you're afraid of failure, then it's like, okay, you want to succeed, but you're afraid of failure. So your mind is confused. It is no longer laser focused, and it's going to not help you. It is supposed to be the genie in a bottle, but it's going to say, okay, so how is this supposed to work? I'm not really understanding. I'm getting mixed messages. So when you are able to talk to your mind in a very specific way, it cannot help itself but deliver those results. So we have to be aware of what our beliefs are, to be in complete alignment with them. And then our mind is like, yes, let's do it. Let's go for it. But if our subconscious mind is not on board fully, because again, it is being held back by a limiting belief that is in conflict with what you're saying that you want, it is going to create problems. So that is the first rule. The second rule is that your mind wants to stay in what is familiar and avoid the unfamiliar. From an evolutionary standpoint, we are wired for familiarity, because it is what kept us safe. You know, back in the days when we lived in caves, we were in small tribes and communities. Literally, venturing out into the unfamiliar meant death. We could get eaten by a predator, or a rivalry tribe could attack us. They were the enemies. And so we are wired to veer towards the familiar. We see it in small children all the time. They want to eat the same food. They want to be read the same book. They want to wear the same, shirt that they like. They like familiarity. There's safety in that. We're wired to interpret it that way. So anytime that we do something different and new, it is uncomfortable. It might even be a bit painful for a while until it becomes familiar. People that work out, they start off from, I'm not in good shape. Now I have to do weights. Now I have to start running. It feels uncomfortable. It is painful. But then once you move through it, your mind adapts and it's like, oh, this is the new familiar. The new familiar is that I feel great after working out. Let's do more of that. We tend, unfortunately, without knowing it, to wire our children for failure, because we also instill in them this certain familiar patterns and habits that they are watching as they're growing up. And then that is what they know. If they see that parents are afraid of, they're always telling you, be safe, don't go out, don't talk to strangers, look around, you are going to grow up with a sense that the world is not safe, that people are not to be trusted. Making connections with people can be harmful or dangerous. And that is what is familiar to you. A new job opportunity will look very unfamiliar, almost dangerous in a subconscious way. But that is part of what we need to work on. So make sure that you start making the unfamiliar familiar. If you never praise yourself, start praising yourself. Make praising yourself familiar, for example. If you didn't hear those words from your parents, start telling them to yourself. It's going to sound very, very funny at the beginning, but then it will get familiar. And once it becomes familiar, your mind is going to be on board with it. So that is rule number 2.
I feel like a lot of the time it's really easy to get stuck in the familiar. But once you realize that you can really just change your mindset and you can change what's familiar to you, you can make something more familiar to you, then you're really able to start making those changes to really do something different with your life and do something better for yourself.
That is so on point. And so going over to rule number 3, you make your beliefs and then your beliefs make you. The amazing thing about our mind, and when I mean our mind, I'm always referring to the subconscious, okay? But sometimes I'll make the distinction just for the sake of not confusing people. But our subconscious mind doesn't care if what you tell it, it's right or wrong, good or bad, healthy or unhealthy. Our beliefs become a self-fulfilling prophecy. When we are taught certain beliefs from childhood, you can see that children are not critical at all. Their minds and their brains are still not wired to say, wait a second, and to start questioning and analyzing and comparing and evaluating. They still don't have that skill developed yet. So they just take it in. They take in that Santa comes and delivers gifts. They take in that there's a tooth fairy that also, brings you money and puts it under the pillow. Kids are not questioning that. And our subconscious mind is a little bit like that. It really doesn't care what we tell it. It's just going to accept it and run with it. So when we are talking and dialoguing with our mind, it is important to understand that our mind is run by a network of intelligence that is influenced by our mind, and it also influences our body and our actions and our thoughts. So when you can influence your mind, you also have an influence over your body, and you can make anything happen because you are making yourself believe, and your body is getting the instructions from the mind that it is possible or impossible. If we tell ourselves, oh my God, I'm not good at math, because that's what my parents told me, probably somebody in my family said, oh, people in our family, we're not really good with numbers. That's not our thing. We're more on the artistic side. Then that is a belief. And then that you are making about yourself, and then that belief makes you. Then you go and you are starting to make choices based on that. You're like, oh, of course, I'm not going to study to be an engineer because I'm not good at math. In my family, people are not good at math. This is not something that I'm going to be successful at. This is how we need to understand that the mind is not saying, hey, wait a second, but you are good at math, or you can do additions and subtractions, and, algebra and physics is just a step up from that. Your mind is is just saying, okay, we're not good at math. Then anything that is numbers, we are just going to reject it, or we're going to block ourselves for it because, what is the point behind that? And the good thing is that there's a word called neuroplasticity, which means getting the mind to dialogue with the body. So if we're able to interrupt those negative thoughts and to interrupt those limiting beliefs and replace them with the ones that empower us, we are going to able to experience the results that we want. So as I said, this is a message of hope. It's not that we are doomed because something that happened when we were 3 years old and then how do we change the past? No, what I mean to say is that we cannot change the past, but we can change the interpretation of that situation, of that event that happened. We can change the meaning that we assign to that particular incident in our life that marked us and made us believe, fill in the blank, right? So if we're able to do that, our mind is going to work accordingly. And it's going to say, oh, now we have a new command. As I said, it's not going to question it. It's not going to say, oh, but Eva, you were telling me that you were bad at math for 20 years. And now you want to study calculus. Like, what is this all about? You're crazy. Your mind is just going to say, oh, this is the new direction. Okay, well, this is the new direction. I'm going to get you there. So that is rule number 3. And the 4th rule is that your beliefs form a blueprint and that you are wired to meet all of your life. This goes in hand with rule number 3. As children, we form blueprints from what we see happening around us and from things that people tell us, from situations that happen to us. And then the mind, the subconscious mind, makes a blueprint out of that. That is the guiding light. That is the compass that the mind is following. Your mind is going to do everything it can all the time to reach that blueprint. And there's a scientific reason for this. The thing is that your brain has a filter, which is called the reticular activating system, RAS. And this system decides in real time, because remember, when we are going about life, when we are going about doing all the things when we're awake, we are getting bombarded by trillions and trillions of stimulus, information, data, and the like at all times. It's the temperature in the room, it's the movement of somebody doing something behind us, it's the car that's passing by, it's a scent, it's a noise that we hear in the background, somebody talking to us is like also holding the mug of coffee. It's everything happening at the same time. And if we were to allow all of that input in, we would drive ourselves crazy. Because besides that, we also have to monitor our heart beating, our breathing, our blinking, and all the things that we're doing internally. So we would probably explode. And that is why the reticular activating system is deciding in real time what information is going to enter your conscious mind. And there are 4 things that it automatically allows to pass. The first one is the sound of your name being called. The second thing is anything that threatens your safety. The third thing is any signal that you get from a partner that is interested in sex, right? Because again, it's part of our survival. It's part of our species trying to survive and trying to procreate. And the last one is whatever your RAS thinks it's important. So listen to this. Whatever your reticular activating system thinks it's important. And where do you think it is getting this instruction from? From the blueprint. So if the blueprint is, I am somebody that's always unlucky, guess what? Your mind is going to be looking out for that. Oh, look, I lost my wallet again. It's always looking to validate that blueprint so that it keeps saying, look, yes, you are unlucky. Look, all these things are always happening to you. But it didn't notice that somebody gave you something for free. It's not going to filter that in. What is going to filter in is the blueprint that it's working on. So that is rule number 4. And the last rule of the mind is that we act in a way that is consistent with how we define ourselves. I said it before, the most important words in the universe are the words that you tell yourself. We have to be very mindful of what we say because they form our reality. If you are a parent that is always saying, my kids are driving me crazy, my kids are always misbehaving, watch those words. What are you saying? They are creating a reality. And from that reality, you are going to react and behave. But if you say, you know what? My kids are acting age appropriate. They're 3 and 5. That's what they're supposed to do. Now think about how you react to that. You're like, oh, okay, so it makes sense. Probably it's still uncomfortable. Maybe what they're doing still annoys you a little bit. But if you're like, oh yeah, but it is age appropriate, they're supposed to act that way, then you start to make a whole new series of decisions based on just that one phrase, as opposed to, my kids are driving me crazy and they never listen. This is something that it is very important to understand, because once we change your language, we can change the way we feel.
I love that so much. And I can just see, within my own life, how, as you said, the way that you say things really changes how you view everything. You can be, stuck in traffic and someone cuts you off and it's like, damn, they're doing this because they know that I have to work, and you can make it all about yourself.
Right.
But if you just change your thoughts and think oh, wow, maybe they have an emergency and they really need to get somewhere. That changes your emotional response to it as well. And you're not as angry. You're not as, that doesn't trigger the same emotions as it does if you have a different viewpoint. So yeah, these rules are so important. It's so good to really understand how our mind works, because once we have that awareness, then we can start to consciously make those decisions to try to change the way we speak to ourselves as well.
Absolutely. It does make a big difference, because our feelings start with a thought, always. If you are in a bad mood, try to think, what was that thought that created it? Because probably there's something there, and probably it was just very quickly, but then it stayed with you. And you're like, oh my God, it's now I'm annoyed about everything. But it all started with just one thought that happened, or somebody said something and you said oh my God, my boss is always after me, and that thought came in passing. And then the rest of your day is pretty much in that mood. But it's because of that thought. And that thought had a series of words in it. And then you're reacting to that. And that's the feeling. Now that we have all this information about how our mind works and how we can use it to our advantage, I am going to treat you to my favorite part. This is my jam. I love to do this with my mamas and with anyone really that feels that they want to create lasting, permanent change in their lives.
If you enjoyed this episode, you won't want to miss part 2, where Iva guides you through a hypnosis session that is going to be a game changer for you. I am so excited for you to dive in, and I know you are going to love part 2.